Welcome, everyone. All right, should we get started? Oh, we're already behind, so. All right, welcome. So this session is titled Automating Finance Workflows with AppZen's Workbench. Who currently kind of manages, oversees, or has worked in the AP inbox? You know the AP inbox? Accounts payable inbox? You, myself. Anybody else had the bane of the existence of having an AP inbox? I have multiple times in my career, sitting in front of a Outlook or Gmail and getting vendor invoices and payment inquiries and things and on and on and on. The deluge continuing on and on until the end of time. So, safe harbor. You're going to see some things. It may change in the future. But what we want to talk about, one of the concepts that we've been kind of discussing this entire time for the past few hours, is the AI agent and what it is. And Anant went into detail about what the AI agent is. We saw Luke kind of go a little bit more from a higher level about what that AI agent kind of looks like from Sam Altman's point of view and from the perspective of what it looks like for the global economy and you know what it looks like for our where we are. So we started at the broad, and now we're getting deeper and deeper. And so now we are in the weeds. We're going to get into the weeds a little bit. And we're going to talk about what the AI agent Workbench really is and how it's going to shake out, you know, in one of our products, which is our AP Workbench. And I like the way Sam Altman kind of discussed it, which is like, it's like a senior employee, right? It's somebody who's got some reasoning, will learn, make decisions, multiple steps, right? Not just like somebody or something that I'm just going to talk about, talk to, and just do. So this is kind of taking it to that next level we keep hearing about. So my name's Asad Malik. I work in customer success. I run our team, some of our teams here, Dan, Venkata, Denise, are here, and Saman, sorry. Saman? There he is. So I run our customer success team. And I've been at AppZen for 3 years. I've been in the expense space for, and I did the math, 8 years? Yikes. And in tech for over a decade. And so, it's really exciting to be here with you today to kind of talk about this new technology. And we're going to talk about some of the challenges and what that looks like at AppZen. I want to introduce you to one of my coworkers. This is Buddy. And Buddy, as you can see here, is deeply overwhelmed, right? Obviously this is AI generated. Can you tell? He's a ragdoll. I've had this cat for 13 years. He's like my son. But if you're aware of what it's like managing inboxes, right? And it could be any kind of inbox, AP inbox, travel and expense inbox, or something like that. But this is the one that we're talking about today, is like an AP inbox. You have multiple inboxes if you're working with a global organization. You got, maybe one in the US, maybe one in EMEA, maybe one in APAC, maybe different business units, entities, and they all have different domains, and they all have maybe different people working them. So in this case, Buddy's very overwhelmed, so many inboxes. Invoices are received through various channels, and then you got to figure out which employee handles that, vendor invoice. Who works in AP? Yeah, yep, AP, right? A few of you. When I used to work in AP, I worked for Broadcom, and I had like A through F. That's how it was. It was just by the letter, A through F, and I did rents and mergers and acquisitions. That was my thing from like 100 years ago when I was at Broadcom. But that's what was the logic in that? Like, you take A through F, you take G through whatever, so on and so forth. Now we're getting down to that little bit more intelligent workspace. So we're looking at like figuring out which employee does, verifying the invoice details, ensuring they're legitimate, and then manually entering that into the system. I used to print out. So I used to get the emails, print it out onto paper. Do you guys remember paper? Right? I used to print it out on a paper, on a printer, right? And then sit down and print out a barcode. And then put the barcode on the paper, and then scan it into the printer, and then throw that crap away. Yeah, they used to pay me to do that. It was insane. And then that would go into the system, and then I'd have to go in and tag and find the invoice, and then go into PeopleSoft and so on and so forth. Now we are much more sophisticated than that. So some of the challenges that an AP team faces on this manual, or no longer manual process, but managing the AP inbox. Categorization of emails, something I used to have to sit there and do, is figure out what this vendor wants from me, right? Or what this supplier wants from me. Categorizing the emails, prioritizing them, trying to figure out. So I have to read every email. Then I'd have to assign it to the right AP processor. And then I'd have to I'd use, I can't remember, I think it was maybe Slack or Teams or one of the, channels, chat them. Hey, email in your box, email in your box, email in your box, so on and so forth. Put it in your folder. Hey, Cheryl. I used to actually work with a Cheryl. Hey, Cheryl, this is for you. Endless, high-volume invoices, inquiries, communications. It's very timely. And meeting those payment deadlines and all the compliance that actually went with it. And when we say compliance, what does that really mean? And it's like every single vendor had a different buyer, and every single buyer had their own nuances and had their own little snowflake process. Does anybody else have a snowflake process with, internally? If it came from this director, oh my gosh, that guy's a walking god, don't do anything, don't make sure you process this. Employee number 20, yeah. Data entry, all very timely, all very time-consuming, right? So what is it that this AI agent workbench is going to do? It's going to, reduce the time for processing, identify these, bottlenecks. And one of the things that I added is this taking advantage of term discounts. You can get discounts. Remember that? Remember discounts? Who has actually taken advantage of a discount? Who does? Anybody? Of course you do. Yeah. Do you take advantage of the discounts too? What's that like? Right. And it's kind of, there's like an incentive, right? You really want to try to get to that, but with some of the processing, it's very difficult to get to 10 days. Like, my goodness. Now, I talk to customers and it's like a dream, right? It's like a dream. What, are discounts important to you? And they just chuckle. Yeah, okay. They're just trying to get into that net 30, net 60, net 30 if they hate you. You know what I mean? So this is what we're trying to solve, right? What we're going to do is we want to consolidate everything into a single pane view, so you don't have to look at multiple inboxes everywhere. Get everything into one view, and then we want to categorize, get those email responses, and we can have this kind of role-based control as well. So one of my favorite things is, being able to assign inbox, like emails, inquiries, things like that. And you can bulk assign your workflow process. Does anybody manage workflow, like workload as well? Workload, like you do this, you're going to do these 10 expense reports, you're going to do these 10, invoices, things like that. Is it your favorite part of your job?
Every day, we get close to 200 higher reports sent to us. So me and another auditor on our team, we split them in half.
You split it just like one, like more.
We split them in the afternoon. We do that every day. And that's just kind of AppZen is the priority, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also have a 2-day rule. We don't let reports go over 48 hours old. We try and keep on it.
Yeah. Endless deluge, just the avalanche never stops, right? And you have to sit there and like kind of, add that to that queue and that processing. And that is like workload management, right? So your workload management, your processing. So the AI agent is, kind of where we're going with this next step. Demonstration. Ready, guys? By the way, up for grabs today, a red one, right, for this session. All right, just so you're aware. All right. Cool. So this is one of the things this is what the Workbench actually looks like, or this is a Figma. This is a Figma of it, and kind of walk you through kind of what it looks like. There we go. So as you can see, you've got all your emails in, you have your statuses, your assignees. Also, something I want to point out is the source. So you have multiple inboxes coming into the single pane view, and then you're able to adjust that view to those requests, right? So let's say I want to look at just the US. So now I can identify what is only in the US side. So this is just kind of like looking at this visually. And then what the AI agent, what AppZen Inbox does is it reads the email, actually reads the email for you as like a human almost would, and then say, got it, boss. It's a invoice. This one's a payment inquiry. This one's an invoice. This one's a payment inquiry. This is a duplicate. And it does it like instantaneously, categorizing each invoice as it comes in visually. Now I can just look at and identify category-wise. I can say, I just want to look at only invoices. Or I just want to look at payment inquiries. Or you know what? I want to send all my payment inquiries to Venkata. And then I want to send all my invoices to Dan. And then I'm going to send, and then duplicate invoices, done. Get them out of here. It does this instantaneously. So you don't have to have all that processing time where I have to read something from DigiKey and be like, what is this? DigiKey is one of my that I had like 1,000 years ago that I still remember and have nightmares about. So I can identify, and every supplier has like a different way of writing, and you've got to like sit there and read through, and get this mundane non-value add. What's the value in mentally processing this when I can just do this automatically, right? So I get back. There we go. So looking at bulk actions, this is like kind of back to that processing that we were talking about. We're able to bulk assign emails internally in the AppZen single pane. So I can have my T&E, I can have my AP, I can have my inbox all in one system. No swivel chairing. Has anybody ever heard of swivel chairing? You know what that is? You have to go from like tab to tab. You got to go into like this, into that. Well, one of the things that you may not be aware of is that the AP Workbench actually connects to your ERP. So it knows what's going on in the background, okay? So, for example, and then we can, kind of bulk assign these to Noah, which is pretty great. But let's take a look at a payment inquiry, what a payment inquiry looks like, right? When we're looking at the email. So the AI agent that we've been talking about has read this email. So the supplier, Orange Garage, second invoice is attached. We have those terms. Fantastic. The AI agent will write the email for you and automatically respond to the supplier based on information that is in the ERP, right? So it has your invoice summary already there. And it'll actually create, so in this scenario, we're going to look at this one. It says the invoice is on August 2nd. Terms are 210 net 30. Fantastic. Writes an email. We're pleased that the invoice has been processed and the payment is scheduled for July 10th, well within the agreed terms. All right, a little spicy AI, that's fine. Well within the agreed terms. All right. I'm hoping that AppZen takes, I wonder where they get their sense of humor. I'm hoping we can add a little bit of sarcasm to some of the responses. If if we can get there. I'm working with product. I kind of want to add like a humorous slide to it, but we'll see. But what this has done, if you look at what we've done here, is that it's gone back to the ERP, identified the invoice, supplier, the amount, the invoice date, the entity. It has all this information. But what it did is that it created an opportunity for discount task for Ellie. And it says up here, it's a task. So now I know what it is. I know what it wants from me. This email is a payment inquiry from this supplier for this amount with these terms. And it's alerting Ellie. So I'm Ellie in this case. Now I got a task. I got a task in my work list. And it's telling me, Ellie, yo, discount terms are 2%. Invoice for this is the invoice number, $240. It's paid by July 13th. Now, I'm Ellie. Oh, I have a fiscal incentive. I have a financial incentive to see if I can get this processed as quickly as I can for $240, right? And instantaneously, if I can get this pushed through, we get $240 off the invoice. Now, it's $240 off of a $12,000 invoice. Is that a lot of money? When you add it up across thousands of invoices and hundreds of suppliers, and you're utilizing AppZen's Workbench and workflow, and the stars align, and we're able to get this processed very quickly. When you start adding it up, now the workflow starts to make sense. Now this is the actual nuts and bolts of what we're talking about as far as like an AI agent. Right? We've been talking about like this AI agent. What is it doing? Right? It's been very like broad. Here it is. Right? And this is a very simple task. It's a very simple task. It identified the email. It categorized it. It created a task for Ellie. An incentive was in there, $240. It even changed the status. When you have the stars aligning, right, with AppZen, autonomous AP processing, and identifying, hey, this is a high autonomous rate processing with this supplier, and we can take advantage of this discount. What do you guys think? Cool, right? Yeah. This is workflow here, like this, even though I built it, I didn't build the tech, but I made the thing. I was really excited. I was actually working with the UX designer on this, and he was like, "This is a great idea," and I was like, "I know." So, just like this jacket. But this is like in process, like what we're talking about as far as AI agent, reading, reasoning, creating an opportunity, looking at the terms in the supplier. And then, the AP processor doing the human thing is identifying like this is an opportunity for us to, get it moving. So, let's take a look at PO out of funds. So, has anybody had a PO out of funds situation? Aren't they great? Happens all the time, right? I can hear the grumbling. I can hear the grumbling already. That's how I know we're kind of like hitting a nerve when we start talking about some of these pain points and the back and forth. Now, as an AP processor myself, back in the day, when a PO was out of funds, there were some times when I would just get up and I'd be like, all right, this is going to be great. So now I got to go like email this, director. I got to go, hey, can you create this PO out of funds? Here's the last invoices. On and on. I have to create this chat. How's your dog? How was the surgery? A hip dysplasia situation. I totally understand. You know what I mean? All right. This is what I have to do when when I'm slacking peers and colleagues and leaders and things like that. You have to. You have to play nice. But the great thing is that, no, the AI doesn't have to do that. So we can create an open task, right? We've received this against this invoice, but the PO is out of funds. Please ensure the funds are added. So the invoice is created, right? Now, the AI has got the request. It's replied, it's created the task, and then it's replied back to the request as well. So it goes back to the ERP, knows that all the invoices have been processed, so on and so forth, right? And it creates this for this task for the end user, so I don't have to go back to the end user, the business user, and tell them that the PO is out of funds. They get an email, they got a task, they can go into AppZen, they can go into the ERP, they can do it on their end, do the human thing, and do the request, right? Moving on from there. So that takes care of, again, one of those kind of non-value adds, something that we can get the tech to reason that, hey, when there's a PO out of funds, create a task, go back, And this is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite ones. This is one that really gets on my nerves. Is getting an invoice with no PO or the wrong PO. Like, no. Right? That's an immediate reject. We need to get the supplier to make sure that the PO has the correct. She's taking a picture of it. She's like, oh my God, please. I hate sending this email. Who likes sending this email? PO, no PO on the invoice, or not the correct one? Yeah. That is one of my pet peeves as well. So. No PO attached. It creates, and then it creates this email. And notice that it's missing from the attached PDF. According to our policy, a PO required for processing. Please provide an updated invoice. And then, oops. So, and then what will happen is the AI will send that, the supplier will send the invoice back, and the AI will respond, thank you, received, and then moving on, it'll close out that task, and it'll move it from pending vendor response. Yeah?
Does it confirm that the PO is included in the PDF that was sent back?
Correct, yeah. And then it will change the status in the ERP to available for processing. That means that as an AP processor, I don't need to look at an invoice that doesn't have a PO. So it just gets moved to a different queue. The communication's already happened back to the supplier, right? Because why take up the time of a human to just look at a PDF, notice that the PO is not there, and then have to write an email back, and then wait for a response? No. We have an agent for that. And then you're going to hear a lot of that. No. We have an agent for that. But let's all say it together. No. We have an agent for that. Ready? No. We have an agent for that. So, moving forward in the AI agent workflows, you can actually create, some of these automations that we kind of alluded to, looking at, how to assign AP, to the AP US team. You can create this logic here. Same thing with priority automation. Is that if an email, for example, if an email is labeled and it's categorized out of a payment inquiry, and the invoice is less than 7 days, high priority. So now it reads the email, identifies that it's a payment inquiry, and it looks at the invoice due date is 7 days from the current date. It automatically moves the priority up. Again, with that reasoning that somebody would have to read this, know the dates, maybe even know the supplier, and you can create more automations here or more categories. If it's from this supplier, from this location, and this is the user, so on and so forth. So you can create these nuanced, this is very basic, but when we unlock more of that SOP, create more nuanced automations, make your life easier, right? And then if there's a touchless invoice processing, so what this will do is that if the email is labeled, category is an invoice, and it's touchless, and if it's not a duplicate, it'll send out to the supplier, thank you for your email, this invoice has been processed, because it'll automatically respond to that if we can get it, instantaneously through in the hour or so that it takes. If an invoice comes through and it's processed touchless, it will automatically send that email to the supplier. Building that supplier relationship, right? Maybe getting better terms. So that's my presentation. We got a few minutes for questions. Yes?
When the agent crafts a response, is it sent automatically?
We can adjust that, so there might be a delay, but yeah, it can generate, and we can adjust it where we can have a human read it first and then send it, or make it automatic. Yeah. Yes?
So I know we're talking shared inboxes. If we're moving from a shared inbox to like more of a ticket system, service now, do the AI agents work through a ticket system as well?
It can, yeah. Yeah. It will. Again, safe harbor. Yes?
So like when they come in, if it's a new vendor for our company, we require W-9, that's not there. Would they send it back, I mean, automatically? Would we train the agent to say, okay, this is a new vendor coming in, we need a W-9, we need a new vendor form, before we can even go further?
Yeah. There's a categorization for W-9, and if you can create like automations around any type of if there's if it's a new vendor and there's no W-9 and it knows that in the system, it'll send that, it'll craft that email if there's a response.
And it'll send it back.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. There's a lot of there's really like a lot of endless, unlimited amount of automation creation that we can like really expand on, just depending on how your connection is with the ERP and how you build those recipes.